In this video, I want to discuss a concept that is so important, that is so prevalent to our waking life as we function and we complete the different tasks of life that we have to do, our responsibilities, our priorities, the things that we strive for, etc. A lot of what we do is based or rooted in a foundational concept, a thing known as the self. Now, what is the self, right? What is the identity? When I say the word I, what does this mean? Now, we know many of the world's different traditions, religious traditions, philosophical traditions, and the psychological contents of these traditions talk about something called the I, or ego, or identity. And they say various things about transcending the identity, overcoming it, dissolving the ego, etc. But through introspection, through the process of sitting down and reflecting, observing your inner states and your emotions, your belief systems and your hurt and your pain, can you come to an understanding of who you are, what you can be, what your beliefs are, and really get to the bottom of what's going on as we function in this world. Now, so in this video, I'm going to talk about the notion of the self, the identity, okay? But more from an introspective perspective, right? More from an introspective idea, an introspective take, rather than a place of a philosophical text that talks about it, or a religious text that talks about the self. How can we understand the self through pain? How can we understand the self through inquiry, through self-inquiry? Okay? So, as I function throughout the day, and I go do my daily tasks, I consider myself as an individual, right? I consider this particular body, this brain, the organs, the tissues, the cells, etc., as a division, right? As a division of nature. I see myself here separately from the rest of nature. Now, because I see myself as an individual, right? There is some sort of an identity or an I that thinks it's separate from the rest of nature, right? It thinks that the cells coming together, forming organs and forming all these things, and the brain, etc., is all compact into this one thing called an I, which in this case is biological. We know the brain, right, stores memory. We know the brain stores memory all the way from childhood, tons and tons of memories that we can remember, some things we can't. It's from these memories that we construct a biography, an autobiographical self. We form some sort of an identity from our memories. Now, from the various memories we have in life, whatever it is, when I was 8, when I was 10, when I was 2, when I was 3, etc., all of these memories come together. My interactions with my relatives, my interactions with my family, my friends, etc., all come under this identity, a story, some sort of a narrative, right? Called Himmel, which is my name, right? So here we have this narrative of Himmel. The narrative it takes many different forms. One of struggle and strife, someone overcoming struggle, someone trying to become a good person, someone trying to become successful, etc. Everyone has different narratives. But it's really important to understand that a lot of these memories that we have are constructing this self. Individually, we have all these memories, but we have this idea of ourselves as a separate entity for the rest of nature, separate from the rest of nature as a self, okay? Now this self that we have, we can say through introspection, okay? So everyone has to introspect, everyone has to sit down and reflect from pain, from happiness, from all different emotions, what they feel, right? So the self-concept, right? Let's say, for example, here I have this self-concept of Himmel. Now again, we know the brain through its 4 lobes and cerebral cortex, right, in the prefrontal cortex, right, along with the hippocampus and all the different areas where it comes together through the thalamus, right? And of course, the primitive part of the brain with the hypothalamus is very, very important for keeping the functions going, right? And of course, in the cerebellum for balance. But we know that parts of the brain are linking together and functioning and accessing memory and constructing a self through our memories, constructing an autobiographical self. There's nowhere in the brain where we can point to and say, that's where Himmel is. Where are you? You know, if you say you're this person, where is that in the brain? Can you please point to me where that person is in the brain? You know, the idea of a unified self, a unified person, you know, a lot of traditions like Buddhists and Hindus, they argue that it dissipates. The self dissipates. And there, you know, Hindus and other traditions also will argue that there's a soul behind everything. So these are different traditions. For now, let's leave it to the side. But where is the self? Where are you in the brain? We know the brain is constructing a story. We know the brain is constructing a story. We know that the brain is sending all these, what is it called? Action potentials, neurotransmitters, etc., through the synapses and the axon and the dendrite, etc. It's passing all these signals and doing all these things. And it's constructing a self. It's constructing a story. This story is something that is like not actually there. You can't pinpoint it. You can't grasp it. You can't grasp the concept of Himmel. You can't grasp the concept of you. You can't grasp it. It's like, some call it an epiphenomenon. It's like a cloud, right? The concept of you, the concept of I is a cloud, right? So let's take this through introspection and let's try to understand this concept of self. Everyone has different views about the concept of self, but let's use introspection to understand how we can benefit from understanding what the self is through introspection. And everyone, of course, is welcome to have their own experiences. Please do have your own experiences and see how this is. So the concept or the notion of Himmel, right? If I have certain beliefs about myself, right? Let's say I believe that I'm attractive, okay? Let's say I believe that I'm intelligent, right? Let's say I believe that I'm creative. Let's say I believe that I'm athletic, right? All of these different things, right? All of these different ideas here. This, if I believe that I'm attractive, right? This is like a belief that I have in myself that the self concept has. There are memories associated with it. There are stories associated with it, right? So if someone in the world does something, says something, or gives any indication that I am not attractive, I am not intelligent, or I'm not creative or athletic, something happens. Let's say someone says a word, someone says a sentence, someone insults me, I lose a competition, I get broken up with, whatever it is. This belief here that is so tied to the self, which is our narrative story, becomes invalidated and it becomes hurt. It becomes hurt, it becomes doubted, right? So this idea of me being attractive becomes a question. This idea becomes this becomes a question here. If I lose a poetry competition, if I keep losing at a particular sport, let's say basketball, I keep losing again and again and again, my beliefs start to become challenged because what I am using in the external environment about myself is giving me contrary evidence to what I think about myself. Okay? So here I have these beliefs about myself. It's very important to understand that we as human beings use the environment around us, the people around us, right? The people around us, the things around us, right? The societal values, the morals, everything. We use things around us to understand the self, right? The self exists because it is an interplay and constant dynamic interplay with other selves and things in the environment. So other things in the environment, other people, even when they nod, when they say no, when they they hang out with you, or they go places with you, or they praise you, or they criticize you. No matter what, you're deriving some information about yourself from other people's reactions. This is why we're so intertwined with other people, because other people, other books, other ideas, nature, etc., helps us understand the division that we have created for ourselves. And it helps us understand this cloud-like thing called the self. So because we're in dynamic interplay with many things, our belief systems are dependent, right? Whoever we think we are, whether it's creative or not creative. You can also think that you're not creative. So you'll go into the environment and you'll look for things that will prove that you're not creative. You know, let's leave self-verification theory and all these other theories about what you do look for. Let's leave that to the side for now. But what happens is, when you go into the environment, things are either validating or invalidating or being neutral to your beliefs. And this is very important because we'll make another video about it, but when you engage in a relationship with someone, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, right? Imagine another self here, right? Let's say I'll call the person Vidya. I like the name Vidya, it's very nice. So let's say there is a woman named Vidya who I am going to be in a relationship with. She has her own self-concept. She's beautiful, she's intelligent, you know, she's athletic, she's very artistic, etc., right? This is going to come in interplay with one another here. Now her actions, right? So if I want something from her and she wants something from me, whether it's a friendship or relationship, right? Myself is going to be intertwined with herself, and these self-beliefs will now become dependent on her actions and reactions to me and the rest of society. Because by nature, we are using other people as reflections to understand ourselves, right? Some people we let in more and some people don't, depending on how much we want them, right? How much we want people, how much we don't want someone, how much their opinion is valued, right? So depending on my relationship with Vidya, right? Depending on my relationship with her, my self-concept is going to be intertwined in some way. And so her actions and my actions are both going to hurt each other. So if I leave her or she leaves me, right? When I was with her, I felt attractive, I felt intelligent. And her presence of just meeting me at coffee shops and going to places and going on dates reinforced my idea of me being attractive. She must be here, therefore I must be attractive or I must be intelligent, etc. When she leaves the relationship and she breaks up with me, right? Then all of a sudden, this comes into question. Was I really attractive? Was I really intelligent, right? The same thing happens when someone cheats on you, when someone lies to you or deceives you, or you deceive someone or lie to someone. You make their identity come into question. So then when people start seeking answers like, hey, like, were you really interested in the other person? Or did you really find the other person attractive? Or did you blah, blah, blah? Through all of those questions, what are people really seeking? People are seeking an answer to their identity. That's all it is. You know, did you really like that person as much as you said that you left me for that person, blah, blah, blah? Or like, you know, someone will ask me, you looked at her for like, you know, 10 seconds and why did you do that, right? Blah, blah, blah. Really what the person is asking is, am I attractive enough? Am I attractive? And I need you to answer this because that's going to determine what I think about myself, because I am in constant interplay with you and I want something from you and you want something from me. And so when we say these things like, oh, I want to be independent, I want to be blah, blah, what is independence? What is independence when you're constantly in relationship with the world and everything? You're not separate. So you're constantly interdependent, right? And so then comes the question of how do we separate that and live for ourselves? And this we will go into many, many videos, but it's just very important to understand the self, to introspect and to inquire into yourself. What are your beliefs about yourself? What do you genuinely believe about yourself? You know, take your name, draw a circle, put the beliefs that you have about yourself, and think about the moments where you felt hurt, where you felt that these beliefs were invalidated, parts of your nature were invalidated, and see, like, how did it hurt? Why did it hurt me? You know? And see how we blame other people a lot of the times, you know? I mean, granted, sometimes it's very righteous, you know, to blame the other person. But a lot of the times, we can transfer like what people say, how people say things, blah, 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 and not transfer, but analyze what they're saying and see our self-concept and what particular belief is hurt, you know? Very overtly, someone calls me stupid, you know that, okay, the part of me that thinks that I'm intelligent is being invalidated, right? You know that, because you believe that about yourself. If you're hurt when someone calls you stupid, it means that there is an I am intelligent somewhere in your ego, okay? So that is going to be there. As long as you have an identity, as long as you have a separation, you're going to have beliefs and things that you think make you different from other people, you know. So Jiddu Krishnamurti said this beautiful, you know, he's like, it's the first act of violence. The first act of violence is to say, I am something. When you say I am something, you are dividing yourself from what you are not and from other people, etc. So it's controversial, but it's very interesting. But this is just, I'm just highlighting the point of what this division is and what it does. But so introspect and understand what the self is, who you think you are, what beliefs you have about yourself, right? And how they're validated and invalidated in interactions. Examine your relationships. Examine your relationships with your family, your friends, and everybody. And understand how that relationship and how that dynamic interplay is forming yourself and contributing to the self in some way. So again, it's very important to understand that the self is this cloud-like thing, right, that has beliefs in it. Beliefs. It doesn't actually have a physical, metaphysical place, you know? It doesn't have a place. It's this thing that has these beliefs. And you really have these beliefs about yourself. You acquired these beliefs through your experiences and your memories and through interacting with society. Now, with these beliefs, you know where your pain comes from when someone says something, when someone acts a certain way. Again, overtly, someone calls you stupid. More subtly, someone looks at you a certain way when you say something. Someone laughs at you when you say something. And you feel the part of you that hurts. You know, you're like, oh, that hurts. That doesn't feel good, right? You know the part of you is invalidated inside. But if you can grasp that and you can understand that it's not the person outside in particular cases. It's not the person outside who has the power when they call you something or when they say something. It's you who has the power. They can call you something and say something, right? And of course you establish your boundaries. But again, notice that it's happening in yourself. The battle is in yourself. So you understand and you can try to see where the pain is in the self. Isolate it, make it stronger, and work on it. So we'll make more videos on the notion of the self in relationships, the self in, you know, different friendships and partnerships, etc. And how defense mechanisms work. How do defense mechanisms work when it comes to the self? When something is hurt here, right? Something shows that someone is not intelligent. People, they lash out, they get angry, they rationalize, they project, right? They gaslight, they make you think you did something wrong when they have hurt you. So we will go over the various defense mechanisms and manipulative techniques and gaslighting things that people use against you. And it's so important to become aware of this, because then you could defend yourself against these things and you can be very, very solid in what you do. You know, because people are unconsciously and consciously throwing out defense mechanisms and manipulative statements and whatnot, and you don't know that it's happening sometimes. You just find yourself just explaining yourself over and over again. But it's very important to catch it, that okay, this person's self-concept was invalidated. They're trying to protect it by telling me that I shouldn't do certain things, and you gotta catch it and you'll see it. So we'll go over these videos in the following video. So yeah, if you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe by hitting the lotus icon in the bottom right. Thank you.